The subject I did best on when I was an undergraduate, at least I got my highest mark in it, was a course called Historiography, which is basically a term which is used for describing the practice of understanding how history is written. And this sort of course particularly interested me in that you're coming at a historical text not from the point of view as what does this tell us about the Reformation, but more what does this tell us about the person who wrote it. And it's fascinating to pick up something which is ostensibly about the Reformation and to try and work out the various ways in which you can look at the author and at his society and at how he related to the past tradition of writing history and also his contemporary situation. Essentially, it's looking at a work of history more as you could, let's say, look at a work of the main sort of areas which you can look at is in terms of looking at the work in terms of a literary piece of work and the sort of forms and conventions that it uses, and also looking at the sort of underlying sort of social theoretical aspects, how the author views society, how the author views people as working, how the author sees areas of society as interreacting, and sort of to take the work and to pick out the sort of models he uses and the sort of assumptions he has about the way people are and the way society is. And I found that aspect absolutely fascinating, and it was somewhat depressing the extent to which I found that the course I was doing, fascinating as it was, really didn't reflect the sort of scholarship that was going on. The sort of movements in historiography have developed immensely in the last 30 years, and the year I was born, 1974, one of the most notable works came out. It was a volume called Meta-Histories by Hayden White, who's been a professor in California. And that work, even though at the time I was studying history, was 21 years old and extremely highly regarded in American universities, in British universities, wasn't actually on the course, let alone, more recent writers who have, criticized Hayden White, developed what he has to say, interacted with, the whole intellectual history of the 20 years since. None of that was on it. There was a tendency to rely on a certain tradition of British writing about historiography, and that was somewhat depressing coming out of it, and then realizing there was a whole new area that I hadn't really managed to get into, and coming to Oxford wasn't really a help. I sort of actually discovered this more through people who are working in departments of English than people who are in, a supposedly prestigious department of history in Oxford. I amusingly found there wasn't a single copy of Hayden White's work in the history faculty library in Oxford, yet when I went to the university library in Brno. So when I went to Brno, I sort of perhaps not amazingly, found that in a Czech library in, a country where books from, academic books are expensive commodities and hard to come by, and they really have to pick and choose about what they can afford to buy. I found a copy of Hayden White available in the university library, yet you couldn't get one in the history faculty in Oxford. So it's somewhat depressing about the lack of sort of cutting-edge intellectual thought in a supposedly eminent university.